Start recording. All right, we're going to go through the entire Proxmox documentation. We're going to read it all. I'm going to do it in a way that is, audio friendly. So if you just want to put this playlist on and just let it run, it will read you all of the Proxmox documentation because that is exactly what I'm going to do. I will be doing some experimentation in the process, but not too much. And I'll be describing everything audibly so that you can just put this on in the car or whatever if you want to listen to it. So as you know, Proxmox is a virtual environment. And we're on the first page here of the administration guide. And we're going to go ahead and just keep reading. So Chapter 1, Introduction. Proxmox VE is a platform to run virtual machines and containers. It is based on Debian Linux and completely open source. For maximum flexibility, we implemented two virtualization technologies: kernel-based virtual machine, KVM, which we talked about before, and container-based virtualization, LXC, which is the engine behind Docker and on Containerd and all the other ones. One main design goal was to make administration as easy as possible. You can use Proxmox VE on a single node meaning, a piece of hardware, or assemble a cluster of many nodes, which is what I want to do. I actually have one running. This is coming from that. All management tasks can be done using our web-based management interface, and even a novice user can set up and install Proxmox VE within minutes, which I did yesterday. If you want to see an answer to the question about whether it's use ESXi or Proxmox, I answer that in the QCA questions, conversations, and advice for yesterday, August 18th, 2022. If you want to go look that up on YouTube, I did talk about that and why I chose Proxmox for my home lab and where ESXi might be a better pick for some others. I'm not going to talk about that right now, though. So there's a diagram here of user tools, and there's some boxes at the top: QM, PVE-SM, PVE-UM, HA Manager, high availability, I imagine, PCT, PVE-CM, PVE-CEF, PVE-Firewall, and then there's a blue box, Services, with 5 boxes in it: PVE Proxy, PVE Daemon, PVE StatD, PVE HA LRM, and PVE Cluster. And then we have some other architectural pictures. So we have a VM with two little boxes for app, and one big box for guest OS. And we have a couple of those, and then those are all under QEMU. QEMU is binding those together. I know what, if those who don't know QEMU is the kind of generic emulation that does virtualization as well as straight up emulation. We're not going to talk about the difference between KVM, Zen, and QEMU right now. That's another conversation I've had in other places. Container, and then you have a container with just the apps in it. And then it has another kind of blue box with Linux kernel as the label, KVM, and then App Armor and C groups. And that is what provides everything. So the summary of the introduction here is that Proxmox is a KVM Linux technology. KVM being the hypervisor, type 1 hypervisor that allows you to do clusters and stuff and manage them easily, blah, blah, blah. So, central 1.1 central management. I'm just going to keep on reading here for a bit. While many people start with a single node, Proxmox VE can scale out to a large... This is exactly the question I had, so I'm reading. Proxmox VE can scale out to a large set of clustered nodes. The cluster stack is fully integrated and ships with the default installation. New paragraph. Unique multi-master design. The integrated web-based management interface gives you a clean overview of all your KVM guests and Linux containers, and even of your whole cluster. You can easily manage your VMs and containers, storage, or cluster from the GUI. There is no need to install a separate complex and pricey management server. This is the first time that I have learned that Proxmox does containers. Now, it's using LXC, so it's a different type of container. I don't know if it needs a container engine on top of it or if it is already just a container engine, but we'll see. New subsection of central management is Proxmox Cluster File System, PMX CFS. Proxmox VE uses the unique Proxmox Cluster File System, a database-driven file system for storing configuration files. Sounds a lot like etcd and Kubernetes. This enables you to store the configuration of thousands of virtual machines. By using CoroSync, these files are replicated in real time on all cluster nodes. Wow. I got to make a note to read about CoroSync. That sounds really cool. The file system stores all data inside a persistent database on disk. Nonetheless, a copy of the data resides in RAM, which provides a maximum storage size of 30 megabytes, more than enough for thousands of VMs. Proxmox VE is the only virtualization platform that using this unique cluster file system. The file system stores all data in a persistent database on disk. Which disk, though? I want to know that because, yeah, I'll keep reading. Web-based management interface. Proxmox VE is simple to use. Management tasks can be done via the included web-based management interface. There is no need to install a separate management tool or any additional management node with huge databases. The multi-master tool allows you to manage your whole cluster from any node on your cluster. Okay, that is the big question I had. I got to tell you, this is genius. You install the Proxmox software, the hypervisor, onto a base device. In this case, I have a Mac Mini running it. And you can access any node and get the same web UI. It freaked me out at first. I was like, is this only the stuff on this one? They all synchronize. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. The multi-master tool allows you to manage your whole system cluster from any node in your cluster. The central web-based management based on the JavaScript framework, EXTJS, empowers you to control all functionalities from the GUI and overview history and syslogs from each single node. This includes running backup and restore jobs, live migrations, or HA trigger activities. So this is really cool because it's streaming the console through the web on the back end. You can actually see real time, like the terminal output from another node, even if it's not the one that you connected to. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Command line. For advanced users who are used to the comfort of the Unix shell and Windows PowerShell, Proxmox VE provides a command line interface to manage all the components of your virtual environment. Yay! This command line interface has intelligent task completion and full documentation in the form of a Unix man page. I think it's cool that they allow PowerShell. That just means that they're not bigots. REST API. Proxmox VE uses a RESTful API. We chose JSON as the primary data form, and the whole API is formally designed for JSON schema. This enables fast and easy integration with... God damn, this is good. I mean, I've worked with the ESXi API, and I am already blown away by all of the very intelligent design decisions in this product, which is not really products free. Role-based administration. You can define granular access for all objects. Like VM storage nodes, etc., by using role-based user authentication, RBAC. That's awesome. This allows you to define privileges and helps you to control access of objects. This concept is known as access control lists. Yep. Each permission specifies a subject or user group and a role of set of privileges. Yes. RBAC is pretty standard in anything these days. Authentication Realms. Proxmox VE supports multiple authentication sources like Microsoft Active Directory, LDAP, Linux PAM standard authentication, and built-in Proxmox VE authentication server. What? Oh my goodness gracious. Yeah, nice. 1.2, flexible storage. This is the other main question I have because the Proxmox VE storage model is very flexible. Virtual machine images can either be stored on one or several local storages. on one or several local storages, or on shared storage like NFS or SAN. So big question I have going into this chapter here, subsection, is do I need a Synology NFS? And I think the answer is no. There are no limits. You may configure as many storage definitions as you like. You can use all storage technologies available for Debian. One major benefit of storing VMs on shared storage is the ability to live migrate running machines without any downtime. As all nodes in the cluster have direct access to VM disk images. That blows me away. That means that they're using some sort of network file system to synchronize all of the local disk-based storage available. I'll have to read that again. One major benefit of storing VMs on shared storage. Shared storage. Okay, I take it back. So there is an advantage to using NFS, like a Synology NFS, because you can migrate your VMs to live migrate running machines without any downtime. Okay, so if that, okay, that's good. That means I'm going to buy a Synology. I don't think I need one, but I'm going to buy one now. Actually, you know what? I don't even think I need that. I think I can put, because I have a server coming and it's got like a terabyte. So I can just use that. Snapshot while running, yeah. So one major benefit of storing VMs on the same shared storage. This is absolutely perfect for a big workstation server like I ordered. It might not be as good for like separate enterprise, racks and stuff like that. As all nodes in the cluster have direct access to the VM disk images. Okay. Look at that. All nodes in the cluster. I don't know what the definition of cluster is yet. We're gonna figure that out. But I have a feeling a cluster is all of the VMs on the same computer. I have a feeling that's what they mean. We currently support the following network storage types. LVM group, nice. Network backing with iSCSI targets. iSCSI target, NFS share, CIFS, Ceph, RBD. Directly using iSCSI LUNs and ClusterFS. Those are all the big ones. Local storage types supported are LVM group. Local back devices, block devices. Yeah, this is standard LVM group. That's like typical Linux. ZFS and directory storage on existing file system. All right. 1.3, integrated backup and restore. The integrated backup tool of VZDump creates consistent snapshots of running containers and KVM guests. Oh my gosh. That is so cool. ESXi has that, but my God, that's so cool that it has it. Running backups. It basically creates an archive of the VM or CT data, which includes the VM CT configuration files. Wow. KVM Live Backup works for all storage types, including VM images on NFS, CIFS, iSCSI, LUN, Ceph, RBD. The new backup format is optimized for storing VM backups fast and effectively. Sparse files, out of order data, minimizing I/O. 1.4, high availability cluster. A multi-node Proxmox VE cluster enables the definition of high availability virtual servers. The Proxmox VE cluster is based on proven Linux HA technology, providing stable and reliable HA services. That makes me wonder if you can have like more than one VM and then fail over, like RAID for VMs. 1.5, flexible networking. Proxmox VE uses a bridge networking model. That makes sense. All VMs can share one bridge as if virtual network cables from each guest were all plugged into the same switch. Nice. For connecting VMs to the outside world, bridges are attached to physical network cards and assigned a TCP/IP configuration. I did that. And I made a mistake of thinking my Wi-Fi was going to work automatically. That's stupid. I plugged it in Ethernet. It worked right away. For further flexibility, VLANs, IEEE, and network bonding aggregation are possible. In this way, it is possible to build complex, flexible virtual networks for the Proxmox VE host, leveraging the full power of the Linux network stack. So they support VLAN. Wow. That's pretty cool. 1.6, integrated firewall. The integrated firewall allows you to filter network packets. What? On any VM or container interface. Common sets of firewall rules can be grouped into, quote, security groups. Interesting. So you can lock it down even if it's already internal. 1.7, hyper-converged infrastructure. Proxmox VE is a virtualization platform that tightly integrates compute, storage, and networking resources. This is why it's so much better than Kubernetes. Kubernetes sucks at this storage. It sucks. Even though they added stateful set to get around that. Manages high availability clusters, backups, and restores as disaster recovery. All components are software defined and compatible with one another. Therefore, it is possible to administer them like a single system via the centralized web management interface. These capabilities make Proxmox VE an ideal choice to deploy and manage an open source hyper-converged infrastructure. What is that? I'm clicking on the Wikipedia link. I have to go back. Hyper-converged infrastructure is a software-defined IT infrastructure that virtualizes all of the elements of conventional hardware. HCI, at a minimum, virtualized computing, a hypervisor, software-defined storage, and virtualized networking. HCI typically runs on commercial off-the-shelf servers. The primary difference between convergent infrastructure and hyper-converged infrastructure is that HCI, both the storage area network and the underlying storage abstractions, are implemented virtually in software at or via the hypervisor rather than physically in the hardware. Because software-defined elements are implemented in the context of the hypervisor, management of all the resources can be federated across the instances of a hyperconverged infrastructure. Storage and the server are all together. I think hyperconverged is I mean, yeah, I don't want to talk about it right now. Actual Proxmox stream. Oh yeah, we're just talking about Proxmox now. I already got Proxmox working on a node, and it turns out you can use it from any node. We're going to read the whole docs. Benefits of hyperconverged infrastructure with Proxmox VE. A hyperconverged infrastructure, HCI, is especially useful for deploying in which a high infrastructure demand meets a low administration budget. For distributed setups such as remote and branch office environments, or for virtual private and public clouds. HCI provides the following advantages: scalability, seamless expansion of compute, network, and storage devices, scale up servers and storage quickly and independently from each other. It's basically cloud. Low cost. Proxmox VE is open source and integrates all components you need as such storage, networking, backup, management. It can replace the expensive compute storage infrastructure. Data protection and efficiency. Services such as backup and disaster recovery are integrated. Simplicity, easy configuration. I mean, you can back up any VM on any schedule. Open source, no vendor lock-in. I'm going to tell you something right now. I have been doing a lot of stuff with Kubernetes over the last year and a half. It's my job after all. And I keep thinking that Kubernetes is a waste. For reasons I'll get into. Hyperconverged infrastructure. Kubernetes misses, hey Matt, Kubernetes misses the entire storage thing completely. It's a major fail. Kubernetes is also really bad at freeing resources. And at the end of the day, Kubernetes is about dealing with containers, and containers are not what you want. Most of the time you want a machine, which is why they created KubeVirt, so they could put, virtual machines back into the equation in Kubernetes. When if you had used an HCI, a hyper-converged infrastructure in the first place, you might not have needed it. As of this moment, I am really souring on Kubernetes as an approach, period. The benefits do not outweigh the complexity. They don't. And there's a very, very specific set of situation where you would benefit from it. You probably would benefit more from a very well orchestrated hyperconvergence infrastructure that includes storage in the equation and full VM backups with your own VM images that you could set up. You could have cloud init images that are just as lightweight as a container practically, and you get everything. You get everything from the virtualization stack for a given device. So Kubernetes is primarily focused on applications delivery. I mean, at the end of the day, and something like Proxmox and HCI is focused on systems delivery. And so I am a huge fan so far of Proxmox. I'm to the point where I actually might join, and make some contributions if I can. And I said ES6i is going to get you the job, but I already made a case where ES6i is not the right pick for a home lab most of the time. Unless your home lab looks like an enterprise, then probably not a good idea to go ES6i. Networking? Not yet. Actually, we passed networking. It has its own. It bridges any system that has Proxmox installed is automatically bridged to all the other ones, no matter what network configuration. It's pretty cool. Compose by Kubernetes is clearly overkill. Yeah. Docker Compose. Look, as of this day, Docker Compose and HCI infrastructure. I don't know, man. I think it might be better than Kubernetes. There, I said it. Kubernetes is too complicated and has too many moving, broken parts, and it's too hard to get observability into. It's too hard to train your team up into. But I'm still being paid to do it, so I gotta learn it. In fact, I'm gonna be putting Kubernetes on here, and then you're gonna see. Proxmox VE has tightly integrated support for deploying a hyper-converged network storage infrastructure. I love that they're thinking of the storage question. See, Kubernetes doesn't do that. You can, for example, deploy and manage the following two storage technologies by using the web interface only. And I already deployed Ceph. Ceph, a both self-healing and self-managing shared, reliable, and highly scalable storage system. Check out how to manage Ceph services with Proxmox. ZFS, a combined file system and logical volume manager with extensive protection against data corruption, various RAID modes, fast and cheap snapshots, among other features. Yeah, I'm already connected. This is actually it right now. Find out how to leverage the power of ZFS on Proxmox. Yeah, you want to see? Yeah, it's on the network. I have to go. Oh, wait, here we go. Here's my thing. See? Yeah, I just need to plug the cable in. I forgot to plug the cable in. I was like, oh, it'll work with Wi-Fi. No, dumb Rob. So, yeah, to anyone listening, plug your Ethernet in if you want your Proxmox node to work. So yeah, we're reading the docs now. So to the first 11 things to do when deploying PVE. Maybe I'll watch that. First, I want to actually read the docs. We are recording, yes, it's okay. But that little flashing thing that says recording, that means we're recording. This is going to be something someone can listen to, so don't worry, they probably won't look at the screen. They're just going to listen. A hyper-converged infrastructure. We talked about this. All right, next. Thank you for the link. 1.8. Why open source? Proxmox VE uses Linux kernel is based on Debian GNU Linux distribution. The source code of Proxmox VE is released under GNU. A Pharaoh. Wow. That's like hyper liberal. That might be a problem, actually. Yeah. This might be a problem. I mean, you could never use... I mean, people aren't using it for that, but Pharaoh is... They're doing this because it's got a web UI. But this means that you cannot use Proxmox on any proprietary hardware product without making the entire source code of what you make available for release in a copyleft way. There's no company on the planet that will deploy Proxmox into any of their standalone solutions after reading this. This is a guarantee that ESXi is going to be alive and well for a very long time. Yeah. Yep, that's right. So this means that, I mean, this is so terrifying to a corporation. Hi. So any corporation that has a decent legal team will never put Proxmox on anything. Anything on which that they're also doing proprietary development of any kind. Because this license is so huge and so full of legal problems that they're not going to do it. I'm glad I read that. That's really important. I mean, because, I mean, one of the reasons, so let's talk about this for a second, because one of the reasons that I wanted to use Proxmox or ESXi is I wanted to be, good in the enterprise and be, there's no job listings for Proxmox, but there might be eventually. And Proxmox, Proxmox is like sweet spot when it comes to things, seems to me to be small to medium to size companies and organizations, right? Not to mention home labs and, nonprofits, that kind of thing. Places that don't have any money that want to have, HCI. They want to have, kind of their own cloud. And Proxmox gives you that. But yeah, you'd have to be very careful about what you deploy on it. I'm not a lawyer. I would have to look into the implications. I think this... Okay, so we already know that GPL v3 says, thou shalt never release hardware that the user cannot change the software that's released under GPL v3. And that is why Torvalds and so many people hate it. So if you have a hardware vendor... Let me give you a for instance here. So the most likely for instance here would be, let's say a company wants to save money. They don't want to write their own HCI. They just want to use Proxmox on it, but they got a really great hardware rack, like kind of like Oxide Computing. They've got a really, it's got all the disks in it. It's got their NFS and their Ceph or whatever. And it's got, all their machines and blades in there. And they have this device and they're like, oh, that would be so great if we had a turnkey HCI, framework application we could put on here that they could just use that's used by everyone. And if that company who produces that hardware says, hey, we ship our rack with Proxmox. If they ship it with Proxmox, they have to make it so that every single thing Proxmox is running on can be modified by the user if they wish. It means that they have to be able to take Proxmox off. They have to be able to screw with Proxmox and do all those things. They couldn't lock it down. And most, I imagine there's a lot of vendors that's probably what they would want anyway. It'd be like buying a laptop from Dell with Linux on it, you know. So I don't think this is as big a problem as I initially thought it was, because anybody who might want to sell a hardware product like that is already selling you something for you to configure and use, and already therefore is going to be financially motivated to give you something you can tweak and mess with. It's the companies like TiVo that created the term TiVoization, or from whence the term was made, I should say, who are a whole different ball of wax. It really is. Yeah. If Arrow, does it not have the same GPL v3 TiVoization clause? Does somebody know? Yeah. I think it says that any software, okay, maybe that's different then. Well, that'd be worth looking into. I mean, it doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect you. It doesn't affect anybody in here. But if you're a company who's considering selling hardware, preloaded with Proxmox on it, or your copy of Proxmox, your extended version of Proxmox, which is legal to do under any of the GPL licenses, and make money for it. You can sell it. You just have to make all your source code available, right? Then that would be a consideration. So so what they're saying here is that if you decide to extend their framework in any way, like make a different theme, or make different interfaces or something like that, if you try to do any of that, you have to give all those changes back to the community, just like with GNU GPL v2. So no matter where they are, right? It doesn't mean that they own your software that you deploy on it. It doesn't mean that. So that's important, right? Because you wouldn't want, even in your home lab, you wouldn't want to be working on, something that might be proprietary. You might want to release on your own terms, and then have somebody come after you once it blows up and say, well, you developed that on, a Proxmox, home lab, so you need to release it in open source. I don't think that applies here. All right, so at Proxmox, computer community use open source software wherever possible. I think they're a little bit overzealous in their use of open source, which is fine. I mean, it sounds like they're more of a copyleft kind of group than they are like open source. I think they mean free software and not open source. Using open source software guarantees full access to all functionalities, as well as high security and availability. We think everybody should have the right to access the source code of a software they run, build on it, and submit changes back to the project. Yeah, everybody is encouraged to contribute while Proxmox ensures the product always meets professional correct quality criteria. Open source software also helps to keep your costs low and makes your core infrastructure dependent on a single vendor. Yeah, it's true. 1.9, your benefits with Proxmox VE. Open source software. No vendor lock-in, Linux kernel, fast installation, easy to use, web-based management interface, REST API, huge active community, low administration costs. I agree with every one of those things. 1.10, getting help. Proxmox VE Wiki. The primary source of information is the wiki. It combines reference documentation with user-contributed content. Community support forum. We always encourage our users to discuss and share their ideas on the community forum, which is... Yeah, it looks like Discuss. What is it called? Discuss. It looks like they're running Discuss. I'm just looking at what platform they're using. Looks like they're using Discuss. What? Okay. Mailing list. This is the fast way to communicate with the Proxmox community. They have a PV user list. Please don't link to the Google one. I bet they do, though. No, they have their own listserv. Good for them. Bravo. Oh, man, did I just lose it again? Bravo. Commercial support. Proxmox, this is Server Solutions GmbH. That means they're German, right? Doesn't this mean they're German? GmbH? Also offers enterprise support available as Proxmox VE subscription service plans. All users with a subscription get access to Proxmox via Enterprise Directory. Yeah, and with a basic, standard, and premium subscription, it's the GmbH is like LLC in Germany. Nice. I mean, it's nice to know that it's a German company. The custom portal provides help and support with guaranteed response times through the Proxmox VE developers. For volume discounts on more information in general, please contact office@proxmox.com. What time will be RWX reads? I don't know. It's Friday night. Bonjoni. It will likely be while we're trying to fall asleep. After I'm a little bit drunk and we're like reading you like bedtime stories. Yeah. I don't feel like I can promise what time it will be. Do you like the first episode? Nice. Bonjoni is asking about another thing we've been doing on here. I actually publishing to YouTube. I'm reading The Innovators by Walter Isaacson in a as soothing voice as I can. Episode and chapter by chapter, and putting them on YouTube so you can listen to them in the car or whatever as an audiobook. It's probably a copyright violation, but I'll do it until I can't anymore. Bug Tracker. You should buy the book, by the way, of course. Bug Tracker. Proxmox runs a public bug tracker. I already have it installed. I installed Proxmox straight up. Yeah, I'm putting it as a hypervisor on everything. I'm not installing it on a thing. No, because I don't need that system to be running anything else. I want it to just be running this. I have this server, this streamer happy server. Server shipping status. No, I don't know where my server is. I should go check really quick. Give me a second. It's gonna not be here until the 28th. But I already have Proxmox installed, And you can do anything because the clusters all get combined, which is really cool. Super duper cool. Buy again, not yet shipped, order placed. View order details, view invoice. Where is my... Arriving August 22nd. It's not out for delivery yet. Nope. Package arrived at a carrier facility. Whatever that means. All right. So, project history, bug tracker, Bugzilla. Project history. Let's read this. This is actually super interesting. 1.11. Project history. The project started in 2007, followed by a first stable version in 2008. At the time, we used OpenVZ for containers and KVM for virtual machines. The clustering features were limited and the user interface was simple, server-generated web pages. But we quickly developed new features using the CoroSync cluster stack, which I cannot wait to look at. Oh, thank you for the sub. Appreciate it. And the introduction of the new Proxmox cluster file system, PMX-CFS, was a big step forward because it completely hides the cluster complexity from the user. And this is something I've already noted. Managing a cluster of 16 nodes is as simple as managing a single node. We also introduced a new REST API with a complete declarative specification written in JSON schema. This enabled other people to integrate Proxmox VE into their infrastructure and made it easy to provide additional services. Makes me wonder why they didn't use OpenAPI, but whatever. Also, the new REST API made it possible to replace the original user interface with a modern HTML5 application using JavaScript. We also replaced the old Java-based VNC console with no VNC. So you only need a web browser to manage your VMs. Yay! The support of various storage types is another big task. Notably, Proxmox VE was the first distribution to ship ZFS on Linux by default in 2014. God, this is very mature software. Another milestone was the ability to run and manage Ceph storage on hypervisor modes. Such setups are extremely cost effective. Oh, right. IRC was, yeah, it might be. When we started, we were among the first companies providing commercial support for KVM. The KVM product itself continuously evolved and is now widely used hypervisor. New features arrive with each release. We developed the KVM Live backup feature, which is so cool, which makes it possible to create snapshot backups of any storage type. Can I just tell you how cool that is? I don't know if ESXi has that, but vSphere, but that is really cool. The most notable change with version 4.0 was the move to OpenVZ to LXC. Containers are now deeply integrated, and they can use the same storage and network features as virtual machines. vSphere has that. So you can actually use containers on this. And then you're asking yourself, well, what do I need Kubernetes for? And the answer is, I don't know. So a couple of things to note here after reading the history. Number one, Proxmox is a company, German company, that has been around for a while, that's kicking butt, making answers to problems and fixing things. It's got much less technical depth than vSphere. VMware, on the other hand, was recently purchased by Broadcom, and that, you know, they have a great product, but the main thing I've learned here is that Proxmox is a company. It's not as big a company as vSphere or VMware, but it's a company, and they have support. So if your home lab grows into a small business, you know, that is going to be a big plus to these small to medium sized CTOs out there, because they're not gonna be alone if they deploy Proxmox. Hey, Izzy. So they're going to be able to make a decision and say, look, I don't got the money for a VMware license or training or any of these other things. And they have a cost-effective, completely open source, dedicated to KVM solution that they can also pay for support. That is new information to me, and that is very important in making the decision to use this for me, because VMware's got to watch Proxmox closely, because it's competition. It is straight up competition on multiple levels, and the stuff that they're doing, I mean, just being able to access any node, things are fine. Yeah, I drank a lot of water, and Izzy's asking how I was last night because I, drank vodka and danced and had fun. Proxmox, yes. So I'm going to say it again. VMware, if you're watching, I would watch this project like a hawk, because depending on how solid it is, and so far everything I've been reading and experienced is it's very solid. No. Oh God, I'm glad that's off. Please don't play that during I'm recording for YouTube. Izzy, I love you. Don't worry. Don't you worry. But we're reading stuff right now. We'll come back and play later. What time is it? Give me a while, and then we'll play tonight. We're still working. We're still in kind of work mode. You probably want to have fun already. All right, 1.12, improving the Proxmox VE documentation, and so contributions and improvements to the Proxmox VE documentation are always welcome. Of course they are. Nobody wants to write them. There are several ways to contribute. If you find errors or other room for improvement in the documentation, please file a bug. Please file a bug at the Proxmox bug tracker to propose a correction. My server is still a few days away, but I'm running one right now. The really cool thing about this is I can run a Proxmox server, and then when my other one gets there, I just have to put it on there too, and I don't have to change anything. And the reason that's awesome is because I can go build my control plane nodes and virtual machines on this Mac Mini while I wait for the other server to get here, and then I can just migrate them. It's that easy. It's super amazing. Yeah. And so I'm having a hard time not doing this all night. All right, I'll continue reading for those of you who are listening on the YouTube or whatever. If you find errors or other room for improvement in the documentation, please file a Proxmox bug tracking report. If you want to propose a new contact, go to the wiki, reference documentation, blah, blah, blah. Get at git.proxmox.com/git, pvdocs.git. Oh, they're using ADoc format. They're using ASCII doc. What a mistake. Okay, that's the first thing I've seen it goes against them. It's been really cool. Thank you for saying so. Appreciate it. ASCII doc format. A lot of people love it. Chris is a big fan of ASCII doc for writing books. Chris Nova. I don't like it. Maybe I need to rethink that. I don't know. Maybe I need to rethink that and do all my keg stuff in ASCII doc. Probably not, though. Anyway, ASCII doc is ASCII doc is, oh boy, whoopsie. What did I do? ASCII doc is the thing that people use. All right, back to our reading. Where was I? I can't find it again. I lost it again. I have to click on documentation. Here we go. Hat migration. Okay. 1.13, the last subsection of the introduction says, translating Proxmox VE. The Proxmox VE user interface is in English by default. However, thanks to the contributions of the community, translations to other languages are also available. We welcome any support in adding new languages, translating the latest features, and improving incomplete or inconsistent translations. We use getText for the management of translation files. Tools like Poedit offer a nice user interface to edit translation files, but ones you can in whatever editor you're comfortable with. No programming knowledge is required for translating. Wow, I really just want to read all about that. This because they're German. I'm going to say it. I'm going to say something very controversial. You want to buy software that's not made by an American company. Because those companies care about language support internationally. Because they get it. Because they're in a country where English isn't the primary language. And sometimes it's a problem, right? I mean, anybody that used SUSE when it first came out, like I did, you couldn't read anything. It's all in German. So that's all I have to say about that. Next, 1.13.1, translating with Git. The language files are accessible as a Git repo. If you're familiar with Git, please contribute according to the developer documentation. You can create a new translation using the following: git clone, blah, blah, blah. Or you can edit an existing translation, Poedit, lang.po. I have never heard of Poedit, and I am super interested in that now as a way to make language support in my own software. So I'm putting a little thumbtack in this because I want to go back and learn that. So can add it to my Bonsai tool and to any tool, any application that I want to have multiple language support for, which I believe in very strongly. 1.13.2. Turns out they totally don't care about it, at least documentation. Did they not write any documentation, or did they write it only in Chinese? I don't know. Even if it's okay. No comment. Even if you're not familiar with Git, you can help translate Proxmox VE. I'm skipping this. 1.13, testing the translation in order to translate blah, blah, blah. You can turn the PO into a JS file. The resulting file becomes JavaScript. Alternately, make deb. 1.13.4, sending the translation. You can send finished translation PO file to the Proxmox team at the following address. So they're on the translating thing. They got a full section just about that. Chapter 2, installing. That was very loud. PO how to. Thank you very much, GB. Chapter 2, installing Proxmox VE. We're going to read this, then we're going to read... How much more we got to read? We got lots to read. Are we going to read the whole thing? Yes, we are. We are. A little bit at a time, though. I don't want to get too bogged down. Not loud at all? You didn't hear it? Okay, good. How's it going, Frackery? Install Proxmox VE. Proxmox VE is based on Debian. This is why they installed this. ISO files provided by Proxmox include a complete Debian system, as well as any necessary Proxmox VE packages. Can I just pause to tell you how awesome that is? Because you're just using Linux, and Linux runs on anything, pretty much. See the support table. The installer will guide you through the setup, allowing you to partition a local disk, apply basic system configuration, time zone, language, network, etc., and install all third-party packages. This process should not take more than a few minutes. It didn't. It took me maybe 5-10 minutes tops. Yeah. Installing with the provided ISO is the recommended method for new and existing users. I'm reading. What are you bringing me? Okay, I'm going to pause. I have to pause because my wife wants to talk. Unpause recording. Sorry for that. All right, so here we go. Installing Proxmox VE. The installer will guide you through a setup, allowing you to partition a local blah, blah, blah. We did that already. Alternatively, Proxmox VE can be installed on top of an existing Debian system. Everybody keeps telling me that that's what I should do so I can reuse the Debian system it's running on to do other things, like use the GPU to play games or use the graphic IDE and stuff like that. And I can see doing that, but that's not my interest. I'm 54. Everybody keeps asking this. That's like the 4th time in 3 days. Okay, so what are we doing? We're reading the Proxmox documentation together. And we're preparing for a questions and answer session to come later tonight. Every night from 6:30, every weekday from 6:30 to 7:30 is QCA, questions, conversations, and advice. The process should not take... Okay. If you're going to do Proxmox, people are going to say, just install Debian and put Proxmox on there. And I'm not a fan. And let me tell you why I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of that because I believe I'm going to review the stages of personal home lab development. The stages of personal home lab evolution. How about that? Okay. So let me review the stages of personal home lab evolution. You have to have a home lab. I don't have to justify to you why you need a home lab. But you have to have a way to do work and to practice off the clock and blah, blah, blah. So stage 0, personal laptop, SSH into a cloud server. Do everything that way, right? You can run whatever you want on the laptop. If you want to, you can, switch that laptop over and, into Linux, and then that be your, your lab is just your laptop. Stage 1, add VMware Player to workstation and 1 to 3 headless VMs. Whether you add VMware Player to Windows, Mac, or Linux, doesn't matter. You can have multiple VMs on the same computer. And I'm doing that right now. You're looking at Ubuntu server running with 8 gigabytes of RAM inside of a Windows machine where it's a virtual machine. And I use VMware Player. I use Workstation. I pay for the Workstation instead of Player. Player only lets you use 1 VM. That's the only reason. That's the best technology. We're not going to complain about VirtualBox. Don't do it. It's crap. Stage 2, add dedicated Type 1 hypervisor server as a separate system. And for that, that's Proxmox, potentially Kubernetes, plug and play that. And that's a separate server. That's what I'm doing right now. And 3, add network attached storage devices, a Synology NFS server, identity management, backup power, stuff like that. Stage 4, make an enterprise rack that's not IKEA, and put a switch in there, real components. Maybe consider switching to ESXi vSphere because there's more jobs for that, because enterprises deploy vSphere more than they do Proxmox at the moment. And so but then we'll have experience with both. Stage 5, multiple secure VLANs. Basically at that point your garage is becoming an IT shop. And then stage 6, setting up, Pixie boot, TFTP, and booting all your hardware off of the network, which is what most computer labs do in school and stuff like that. so they can re-image all the time. So we are at stage 2, making a server at home. Giant generator in the yard, chiller on the roof. Exactly. Well, we should probably add that one. Absolutely. Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to continue reading. Just so you know, we are recording while I read through the Proxmox documentation for the YouTube. So this, as long as you see the recording up there, just know that the reason I'm maybe ignoring you, unless you're talking about something relevant, is because I'm making a YouTube video that I want to keep it on track for the most part. So we are reading, let's say, the first 3 chapters of the Proxmox documentation together, and we'll do that. You can be funny, just don't be, yeah, there we go. So there we go. Yep. And we already read that. So 2.1 system requirements. So how do we install? This is important. How do we install Proxvox? I've already done it, but let's read it. We recommend using high quality server hardware. We're going to need the whole documentation. Yes. When running Proxmox VE in production. So is home lab production? I mean, that'll let you make that decision. Probably not as much, right? To further decrease the impact of a failed host, you can run Proxmox VE in a cluster with high availability virtual machines and containers. And we read about that earlier. That looks really fun. Mac Mini is very high quality. Yeah, it is. Dog, stop barking. All right, Proxmox VE can use local storage, DAS, SAN, NAS. She's trying to let me open it. She wants me to open the door. All right, pause. Yeah. Another thing. So system requirements, high quality stuff. Proxmox VE can use local storage, NAS, and distributed storage like Ceph. I want to try Ceph. I really want to try Ceph. 2.1.1 minimum requirements for evaluation. The minimum requirements are for evaluation purposes only, and should not be used in production. How's it going, ta-da? You must have 64-bit CPU. That's interesting. Intel VT AMD 5 capable CPU mainboard for KVM full virtualization support. 1 GB of RAM plus additional RAM needed for guests. We're just reading the docs. A hard drive and 1 network card. Recommended system requirements: Intel EMT64, AMD64 with Intel VT. We already talked about that. Memory, minimum 2 GB. Recommended system, that was the minimum for evaluation. What's the recommended one? Recommended is 2 GB for the OS and Proxmox VE services, plus designated memory for guests for Ceph or ZFS. Additional memory is required, approximately 1 GB of memory for every terabyte of used storage. That doesn't make any sense to me. Someone help me understand that. Let's read that one again. For Ceph and ZFS, additional memory is required. Approximately 1 GB of memory for every terabyte of used storage. I mean, I think we're fine. Yeah, I think we're fine because I know those Mac Minis don't have that much, so I think we're going to be fine. Use RAM caching. Is that why? Okay. Thank you for that. Yeah. Okay. Fast and redundant storage. Best results are achieved with SSDs. I'm glad because I got SSDs. Didn't I? No, I don't have SSDs in the system I bought. I don't. No, I wish I had, actually. I am going to buy a Synology NFS with SSDs, and then network will be the latency factor, probably. That's probably going to be my main storage approach. Maybe not though. I might, because it's all going to be on the servers. So most of that stuff is already going to have a terabyte of hard drive, even if it's not SSD. I'm checking to see really quickly whether the server I just bought has SSD on it. I don't remember if it does. Let me just look at it real quick. This is the server I bought to do this. In case anybody wasn't wondering, I bought an HP Z640, which I bought used for $2,252 with 14 cores and 14 2.6 gigahertz Intel Xenon cores and 128 gigabytes of ECC memory, DDR4 RAM, 5. Oh, it is solid state. Nice. I didn't catch that before. So how's it going? It's doing 512 gigabytes, a half terabyte of solid state. Yes. I didn't even notice that before. The electrical bill will be interesting. we pay like $120 for our electrical bill right now. So that's not a consideration. I'm sure we'll be fine. Because we're in an apartment and we're on the bottom floor, so it's not a thing. Still spinning Rust anymore? I don't know what you're talking about. They do, yeah. You look like a scary older man that could easily beat anyone up. Over on YouTube channel, you look sort of like you're sort of Mr. Santa Claus. I kind of am. All right, back to the business here. Yes. Chicago the weekend? Nice. Yeah, we're going to be going there. I can't talk about it right now. It's kind of secret. My wife said don't talk about it yet. So I have some news coming. But I can't talk about it. So there. Stay tuned. All right, here we go. Recommended. So it's recommended OS. Let's see. Fast and redundant storage, SSDs. OS storage. Use a hardware RAID with battery protected write cache, BBU, or non-RAID with ZFS. Optional SSD for ZIL. Never heard of it. Operating system storage. Use a hardware RAID with battery protected write cache. I mean, would that be different than the SSD I'm already using? I don't know. No, nice area. VM storage. For local storage, use either a hardware RAID with battery backed write cache or non-RAID for ZFS and stuff. Neither ZFS nor Ceph are compatible with hardware RAID controller. Nice. Okay, this is good because I'm gonna reading this, so I have to read it slowly because I have to figure out what storage to get for my server. ZFS intent log. Oh, before they make the way, that's super cool. So this is my plan. Okay, so I have a terabyte of local storage on the main server that will be. I mean, that's gonna be enough for a lot of servers. Let's do the math here. So if I'll have 14 cores over there. So let's say maximum of 30 VMs because they're pretty fast, 2.4 gigahertz. So let's over allocate CPU and let's say we have 20 or 30 VMs, each with like 20 or 30 gigabytes. Maybe let's say 80. How much do we get out of that? So half terabyte is with 580 whatever. 512 gigabytes divided by, let's say 30. I'm gonna do it right here. Equals to 512 divided by 30. Run that through BC. So 17 gigabytes each, that's all. But you don't really need a lot of storage. I think I'm going to get this. I'm trying to decide whether I should get, I'm trying to decide and whether I should buy a Synology for storage, for NFS storage. And I think I do because I want to set up NFS as a lab thing. It's only $300. You got to be kidding me. That's without the discs. Yeah, I was gonna say. That's without the discs. That's only 2 bays too. 500 DDR RAM. I think this is the Synology that most people get. So I'm looking at it just for YouTube people, in case you're just listening. Use a Dell MD122. Synology 4-bay NAS disk station. Diskless is $362. That has 4 discs in it. Allows up to 25 discs. I don't know that I need that at home. I don't know if I need that much storage capacity at home. I mean, maybe I do if I'm going to be doing videos and stuff, right? Maybe I should do that. Maybe I should start doing my own videos. The Nimbles 15K, I'm not buying that. No. You have 10 in yours? The Dell MD1220. Dell makes good stuff, though. Everyone keeps raving about the Synology. So I probably want to buy something that will fit in the rack, even if I don't have a rack. Izzy, what ones do you have? What's your disk storage device? I saw that you had one too. Well, I mean, it's okay for it to be an enterprise. Look, if I'm going to buy, this is the kind of thing that if I'm going to buy it, I might spend a little bit more money to get a rack mounted one and then do the IKEA hack. Did you guys see the IKEA hack, by the way? There's like, where's the IKEA hack? Who sent that? 25-inch discs. Yes. There's an IKEA table that is exactly the perfect size of, it's on my Twitter, actually. Let me show you on my Twitter. I mean, I know this because I've had other IKEA stuff that works with it. If you're still in, I don't have enterprise rack yet. I don't have the money for that. Did you find it? You found, okay, thank you for that. So it's in my last thing on Twitter, RBX Rob on Twitter. So yeah, somebody sent this to me and it's pretty dang cool. So we're looking at a LAC rack from IKEA. IKEA's cheapest table is the perfect size to rack mount computers. It is the exact perfect size to put a rack in. So if you wanted to put your table on the top, if you wanted to put your server tower on the top of it and still use your switch, which is what I want to do because I have a switch, I could even put my Mac Minis and stuff like that underneath it. Yes, Cubadium is a good way to do clusters at home. Yes, we're going to talk about that. Rack station plus NAS server. That's what you have, the rack station? Wait on it, though. Those things are made out of cardboard. Absolutely. I know this. I've had many IKEA. I built my whole school off of IKEA. So I know IKEA very, very well. But I find your rack of wood inspiring. Okay, so back to we're still kind of, we're still relevant. So if you're on YouTube, hi Dan, don't be afraid. We're still going to cover stuff, but we're looking at the IKEA LAC rack to potentially be a filler, so that when you do start collecting hardware, if you have a choice between a Synology thing that just sits someplace and you can buy the rack instead, that costs a little bit more money, then you could maybe, build your enterprise home lab slowly by adding, stuff that's compatible with a rack as opposed to not. So that's what I'm strongly considering is, it's quite a bit more money, right? So, to just have the experience of having a hardware RAID thing. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't think I'm going to need more than that. Izzy, you have the rack station. Oh, you have a different one. Yeah. You have looks like this is pretty well rated. A new server soon ordered today. It cost me around 50. Yeah, of course you did. Yeah, but at your level, and you're making the big Discord bucks. So I'm just playing. Okay, so For the people on YouTube, Izzy has doxed herself many times. She's a Discord person, great Discord person. Works over there. So happy to have her. Anyway, we're going back to reading the docs. The Prox docs. The Proxmox docs. All right, so VM storage. So I am going to, according to the recommended system requirements, I should plan. Oh, hey, Shelby, I didn't see you said hi there. I should plan on buying some sort of external storage with RAID, hardware RAID, if I want. I am also considering using Ceph on all of my systems. I don't know how Ceph works, but I have a lot of computers that have like a 0.5 terabyte disks on them. And from what I understand, Ceph allows you to combine all of those two together and do that. Nice. You paid $5,300 for that? Wow. 64 core though, Threadripper. That's why. Yeah, I'm only getting 14 core. That's where you went crazy. Yeah, the difference between 32 core and 64 is about $3,000. Yeah. Oh wow, cool. Yeah, so for local storage, use either a hardware RAID with battery pack right to cache. I'm not gonna buy my array until I see how much I can get out of Ceph, because I think I can get a lot of stuff out of Ceph that is gonna help me out. Thanks for the follow, Bug. And so that's gonna, I mean, local server DR. Well, that's good. You're getting wholesale then. Nice. So redundant multi-gig NICs with additional NICs depending on the preferred storage technology, cluster setup. That's coming with my server, so I don't have to worry about that. For PCIe pass-through, the CPU needs to support the VTD AMDD flag. I hope that my system supports that, but I won't have proof of that until I do. This is one of the reasons you might want to buy a workstation / server tower as your minimum, because a lot of the consumer grade hardware is not going to have this kind of stuff in it. Some of the consumer grade hardware is not even going to have hypervisor support. So, you know, you're going to set up a Nginx proxy manager with Proxmox? Possibly. We'll see. How's the progress been? Well, it's working right now. I have one of the coolest things about Proxmox is that all you have to do is install the Proxmox ISO, onto a computer, and you can access it immediately and use the management console, which is over here. Here's the management console. There's my data center, folder view, server view. And the really cool thing about Proxmox so far that I'm discovering, by the way, if anybody doesn't know, I have zero experience with Proxmox. This is my newbie, nature going through and learning everything. And the really great thing is that through something called CoroSync, I think it is, every single endpoint serves as a web management console as well. Every single one. So anyone you can contact, and they are all communicating with each other over a bridged network that doesn't even have to be on the same VLAN. It's pretty interesting stuff. So I'm really liking it. 2.1.3 simple performance overview. To get an overview of the CPU and hard disk performance on an installed Proxmox VE system, run the included PVE perf tool. How do I do that? This is just very quick and general benchmark. How do I do it? How do I get on the system? Wait. I'm going to do this right now. Right. SSH 192.168.1. I wonder if they have password-based SSH. That would be bad. We're going to find out. Oh, they do. Uh-oh. They're going to have remote login as root. Watch. Yeah. Okay. So I'm describing what I'm doing. I'm logging in with SSH into the system. What is my password? I don't even remember. Do you remember my password? Here, I'm going to try some things, but I don't want you to see. What do you think it is, Sam? All right. Looks like I'm in. All right, I'm in now. So I'm just describing what's going on. So after reading that in the instructions from the docs, we read in the docs that it says if you want a simple performance overview, run the PVE perf tool. And I then proceeded to log in using SSH and the root account and the password that I set up when I installed this endpoint. This is on a Mac Mini. And I SSH'd into it, and I'm on it. And it's exactly what you'd expect. It's got Debian and everything. It's got a lot of workers in the top output that show PVEs running. So lots to explore there. And I'm going to run the tool that they're talking about. If you're wondering why I'm being verbose, it's because this is being created for YouTube so that people can just listen and they don't have to watch what's happening if they want. So PVE Perf is the name it is. PVE Perf. PVE Perf. CPU BOGO MIPS 19,953. Regexes per second 1,768,812. HD size 93.9 gigabytes. Buffered reads 77.16 megabytes per second. Average seek time 49.52 milliseconds. Fsyncs per second 2.48. DNS ext 66.87 milliseconds. That's kind of cool. Live migration, yeah. As long as you're sharing the same storage. We just read that. And HA architecture without SPL, yeah. Yep, I love that too, Izzy. Yep. You also have a terminal in the UI. I understand that's true. I have not accessed it. Maybe I should do that right now. A terminal in the UI. Let's do that. Let's see if we can do that. I'm going to access it using the terminal. Disks, Ceph, class, create, documentation. I don't see it. If I right click it. Bulk start, stop, create VM, shell. There we go. Oh, look at that. I can get launched a shell. I have an actual shell, my friends. Whoa, uptime. I got a shell through the web interface. That is cool. There's also a shell button on the top right. Shell. ls uptime. And I didn't have to log in. I could just type. I didn't have to type anything. But if I wanted to, I could. I could use SSH. That means I could actually turn down SSH access if I wished. Probably. I'm guessing. I don't know. That's remarkable. Okay. So yeah, this is some good times. Good times here. I'm going to exit that. What are we doing on time here? 5:35. We have an hour before Q&A time. Okay, so back to reading of the docs. I'm probably going to stop after reading the installation guide, and we'll do chapter 3 tomorrow or some other time. So, simple web browsers for accessing the web interface. To access the web interface, we recommend using one of the following browsers: Firefox, Chrome, Microsoft currently supporting Edge, Safari. When accessed from a mobile device, Proxmox VE will show a lightweight touch-based interface. What? You can use your phone with this? I guess you can. I'm gonna try it right now. Am I on the same network? I gotta try this, my friends. This is I'm doing it from. All right, so be patient. I'm gonna use Chrome for this. I'm gonna go to 192.168.23:8086. There. This page is not working. Reload, not working. It's because I did HTTP and not S. Okay, I did S and I got your connection's not private. We have to do our certs and stuff probably. And then I can do advanced and redo it. I know I had to do this last time too. Proceed to the unsafe thing. And then it says, okay, fine. So I have a feeling there's some stuff we have to set up there. So here we go. Proxmox. We got our Proxmox UI from the phone. And then put in our username, which I guess is root, right? My phone's making noise. I don't know why. Damn it. I have such fat thumbs. Password. I don't remember what my password is. Let's see if that works. It worked. Wow, it's like really minimal. Node.js platform. Data center. Oh my god, it's kind of cool. Memory 1.6 gigabytes out of 3.74 gigabytes. 0 or 4 CPUs uptime. No virtual machines. Tasks. Oh my gosh, look at all those tasks. I can get a shell. Oh, it's like a history of all my tasks. It's a history of all my tasks, so I can like look at it all. And data center. That's pretty damn cool. I mean, I ain't gonna lie, that's like really cool. With phone viewing, I don't want you to see my phone ever. I will never put my phone on the screen unless I hold it up for like 2 seconds, because there's just too much stuff on there that I don't want anyone to ever see. Yeah, insecure. So prepare installation medium. Download the ISO, did that. Which, by the way, we put into Ventoy. Ventoy is my new favorite thing for the week. And somebody told me about it. I think it was LBG. And I cannot tell you how cool it is. What it is it's an image. You put it on your USB drive with a bootable partition. And you just drag ISOs onto that you want to install on stuff. And it gives you a menu, and then it runs it, and it installs the ISO images. So you can put all of your ISO images on a single USB stick. I talk about it in the question conversations and answer at device QCA from yesterday. Was it you, LBG? Weren't you the one who told me? I don't remember. Don't get mad at me. For years, I'm glad it helped you out. Yeah, I mean it's completely amazing. So, yep. I think I paid you for that. In rep. That's all I have to pay. We downloaded that. We installed it using that. Using USB flash drive to install Proxmox is the recommended way because it's a faster option. They should put a Ventoy like call out here because it's so much easier. Also, we tried to do VMware installation and that ISO isn't bootable. So you can't even do it unless you have Ventoy. Prepare a USB flash drive as installation medium. The flash drive needs to have at least 1 gigabyte of storage available. Do not use ubootin. It does not work with Proxmox VE installation image. Everyone was telling me to use ubootin yesterday, and I was saying no, and I feel validated. There. Make sure that exactly. Knowledge must spread. Make sure that the USB flash drive is not mounted and does not contain any important data. You have to be warned about that. 2.2.2 Instructions for GNU Linux. On Unix-like operating systems, use the dd command to copy the USB image to the flash drive. First find the correct USB image and then blah. bs1com fd data sync if equals blah blah blah. If you know dd, do that. Otherwise, don't. Seriously, use Ventoy. Just use Ventoy. That is my suggestion. Yeah, disk destroyer. I don't think you should use DD. I have destroyed my disk before with DD. Everyone has done. Everyone's got a story about that. Here we go. So we're going to go be very careful, and do not overwrite the wrong disk. I can say that again. Find the correct USB device name, LSB OK, D messages, and all of that. I mean, if you don't know how to make a USB disk image, you need to learn that. And I'm not going to go through this. Disk list on a Mac? No. This gives me... I used to have to do this. On a Mac, I used to have to do this. Don't do it. Don't do any of this. Don't do any of this. Make yourself a USB, installer USB with Ventoy, and then drag and drop the ISO into that disk. The end. It is so much easier, my friends. It is so much easier to do that. And you won't destroy anything. Well, you'll need to do DD or whatever to make the first image. Yes, it does. Doesn't it? Why wouldn't it work on macOS? The next installation challenge will be Bottle Rocket OS. I know. I mean, that's it. Okay, instructions for Windows. Using Etcher. This is the thing we were talking about doing yesterday, using Balena Etcher. Etcher.io is Balena Etcher, which has got telemetry unless you turn it off, so be careful about that. Using Rufus. I'm not a fan of Rufus. People love to use it, but I don't. I mean, I don't even need to tell you any of this. We can skip. Proxmox VE installer. The installer ISO image includes the following: complete operating system, the Proxmox VE installer, which partitions the local disk with ext4, XFS, ButterFS, or ZFS, and installs the operating system. I didn't know you can change that. I just accepted the universal stuff. That's a good one too, but I don't like it. Just use Ventoy. I'm telling you, use Ventoy. I don't see Riser. Proxmox VE Linux kernel with KVM and LXC support. Every time you see LXC, think Docker, because that's all Docker is. It's just wrapper around LXC. Complete tool set for administering virtual machines, containers, the host system, clusters, and all necessary resources. Web-based management user interface. All existing data for installation selected drive will be removed. Be careful. The installation does not add boot menu entries for other operating systems. You cannot boot. This is why people have been telling me to run Debian and then install Proxmox on there, and I'm like, not a fan of that. Yes, I'm going to move on now. Please insert the meditation data, install Proxmox VE. Proxmox VE, rescue boot, test. Ooh, that's interesting. All right. This is important. This part right here. This is the boot. When you install, I wasn't able to show this yesterday, so let me show you this. Okay, so this is the installer. This is what the installer screen looks like when you run it. It was really, that's exactly what I had running on my chair over here on my Mac Mini. And I did install Proxmox VE. And it just, everything after that was very easy. Anybody who's ever done any kind of installation will know exactly what to do. Today's Friday. Two Fridays in a row. Install Proxmox VE. Starts the normal installation. Debug menu. I did it without a mouse, by the way, so you can tab through everything. Debug mode, rescue boot, test memory. I mean, the rest of the stuff is pretty basic. Proxmox will be installed on ZFS. I don't remember doing any disk partitioning at this point. I guess you can change it if you wanted to. I don't remember changing it. I just accepted the default. I don't remember seeing this part. I don't. I just used. It didn't prompt me, so I don't know why that is. But I don't remember that. Anyway. All right. So, and next bit, this for basic configuration. The only thing that I'm going to tell you about this, so we're looking at a login screen for the Proxmox installer that prompts you for your country, your time zone, your keyboard layout, and then after this is the one that I had to redo because I skipped through it too fast. After that, they ask you for your administrator password and email, and then after that, they ask you for your manager network configuration. And this one I am going to look at. So when I went through the network configuration, it asks you where to put the management interface, right? It tells you, asks you your host name, and it's got TLD there. I did PVE1, and then I did .local because I want to use Avahi, but that's not a something. I actually could install Avahi on Debian and have use domain names to get to my stuff if I wanted to. So that's what I did there. IP addresses, I made sure that my IP address and subnet mask and DNS, I put DNS as 127.0.0.1. So that it's looking at its own DNS. That might be something I would change in the next time I do this. If I have an actual proper DNS server at home internally, I don't have one right now. I just use my router. But the IP address was the one that I wanted to make sure to change. And I made sure to put that on the same subnet with this computer here so that I could make a direct connection without any other bridging or VLAN or routing. If you are, interested in security or VLANing and that kind of thing, then this is where you would change that. But if you're just a novice, there's nothing wrong with, putting them, as long as you have enough IP addresses. I mean, that's the one thing I'm concerned about is I might actually run out of IP addresses on the 192 network. I am never going to have more than 30 VMs because my machines are not big enough. Actually, let me think about that. I'll have 30 VMs on the server that's coming. I'll have 14 VMs on Mac Minis. I'll have 25 VMs from Raspberry Pis, and I'll have 4 machine learning VMs that are gaming consoles. So I'm going to need about, roughly 100-ish names. So using the 192.168 network, the default, which is just designed to be pretty small, that might be a little cramped. And I might figure out how to do some routing there to put it on a proper 10 dot network instead, where I have millions of IPs. How many cores you assign to virtual machine? It depends on how many gigahertz you have. LBG and others have given us kind of a thing there, but roughly speaking, and what you have going on there, you can do about 1 CPU per gigahertz. So you can over allocate CPU. I did that. I've proven that can be done and relatively easy with Kubernetes, depending on what you're doing, right? So you got to be careful with that. But as a really, really rough estimate, I learned this like last summer. You can over allocate CPU cores. You can't do that with RAM. It depends on your workloads and everything else. But if you're just setting up like a lab server for some reason, you can probably get away with about, let's say, 1.5 gigahertz per core per VM. So if you have like a 2.4 gigahertz cores, which I do, and I got 14 of them, I'm going to say it's roughly 20 to 30 VMs that I can run, and I don't need more than that, honestly. I don't need, for all the stuff that I want to do on that server, I don't need more than that. 30 VMs is going to be really nice, actually. And then I'm going to be adding over time, I'm going to be adding a bunch of old hardware that I have to the cluster, to the virtual, cluster. And, and I'll be able to schedule different things on that. I'll probably, for my permanent Kubernetes, deployment, I will probably allocate like an entire Mac Mini for the control plane, for the control planes, and I'm going to try to do HA with that. I mean, for the cluster internally that I have that I want to keep running all the time to do my own stuff, not the one to practice bringing stuff up and down. But I'm going to be doing that a lot. That's why I'm doing Proxmox, because the time it takes to create a new virtual machine is prohibitive when you're doing training. That's why they have Minikube and kind and stuff, but it doesn't give you all the aspects of the training. So you need to do true Kubernetes training, you have to do kubeadm for everything. And I mean, the good stuff, right? The CKA stuff. And for that, you need something to help you spin up a box quickly. And you can, write your own, like I did with Fluff, and use cloud init images, or you can use something like Proxmox. If you run light loads like DNS cache, you get fractions of a core. Do I use swap? No, I turned swap off, but swap can be turned on now. It seems like a way to overallocate RAM. I would never, okay, so as of 1.23, I think, swap, you can now allocate swap in Kubernetes on a node. Before that, the official word was disable swap, or it won't even run. So they've changed that. So you can do swap now. And I personally am still a fan of swap. I don't think you should abuse it, but you got to be careful with swap with SSDs, by the way, right? Y'all know this, right? When you use swap with an SSD, you burn out a section of your SSD fast. In fact, it was such an issue. Let me show you something. DigitalOcean had a thing. DigitalOcean had a warning about it. SSD. Because, and I don't know if this is still true. Warning, it says DigitalOcean. Although swap is generally recommended for systems using traditional spinning hard drives, using swap with SSDs can cause issues with hardware degradation over time. Due to this consideration, we do not recommend enabling swap on DigitalOcean or any other provider that utilizes SSD storage. May 29, 2019. So, these days, you should turn swap off, and I don't plan on turning it on because of it. I think that this is dated. I think that the newer SSD drives are more resilient to swap utilization, but if you think about it, swap is like really hitting a certain section of that disk really hard, and that's what they had problems with. They had SSD drives failing because the swap allocation was like burning out a section of the SSD because it was writing from it way too frequently. And be very careful with swap on NVMe and SSD. Yeah. Is a great way to overcommit on memory. Sure. The performance drops. Yeah. I mean, the only reason that I still like occasionally to have swap is it keeps your system from crashing. So you should never depend on swap for anything except that one time that it saves your system from crashing so you can get on it and kick it down nicely. And I've had that before. I've had that happen in production, where if a system didn't have swap, there's no way we would have lost the database out, an Informix database. So I'm mixed feelings about this because SSDs are terrible for security. You can't shred. No, you can't. You absolutely can't. If you want all the data irretrievable, then I'd stay away from SSD. Yeah. Back with HDDs, it was still crashing, only way worse. This is true. Well, I mean, yes and no. Anyway, so Kubernetes, until very recently, said no swap, period. SSDs, which they recommend you should be using, the rule of thumb for SSDs is don't use swap, so don't use swap. Don't plan on it anyway. All right, so we're almost done through the installation docs here. We are on... Yeah, so we went through all of the Proxmox installation thing, and it gives you a summary, which is super beautiful. I really love it. It tells you all your settings. It's a very, as installers go, and y'all know this, right? So as installers go, the Proxmox installer is very well done. It's very, very clean, and it doesn't resize off your screen, and it like Pop OS does, and it doesn't. It observes your mouse if you have one, but doesn't force you to use a mouse. I really like it. It's a very clean installer. Every controller implements aware leveler. I don't know about that. Aware leveler. I don't know that according to the DigitalOcean guys, that's not true. And then they were actually losing SSDs. I would love for you to take a look at those claims and see what they say. Yeah, aware leveler is supposed to distribute the load across. It's not like just one area. Yeah. Well, that would be nice. I'm glad to hear that. Let's see. Further configuration is done with Proxmox to the web interface. Point your browser to the IP. Blah blah blah. You have to have the S in there, even though you have to tell it that it's not a certificate that you trust. It'll yell at you, and you have to go on the advanced thing. Advanced LVM configuration options. The ZFS rootfs option. I didn't even see it. You're right. I didn't even see the ZFS as an option. I didn't even see it at all. So, yeah, I didn't even know it was there. I would agree with you on that. The installer creates a volume group called PVE. And additional logical volumes, LVs, called root data and swap. To control the size of these volumes, use HD size and swap size. Defines the swap volume to define the size of installed memory. Minimum 4 GB, maximum 4 GB. The resulting value can be greater. If you set to 0, no swap volume will be created. That's interesting. The installer creates a volume group called PVE and additional local volumes called root blah blah. Use HD size. How can you even type these in? Defines the total hard drive size to be used. This way you can reserve free space on the hard drive for further partitioning. For example, for an additional PV and VG on the same disk, a physical volume and VG of the same disk you can be used for LVM storage. Interesting. I would never want to do that though. Yeah, I'm an ext4 guy anyway, so I would never mess with. I want my nodes to be absolutely clean. This idea of mixing your use of your Proxmox server with some other use, to me, is just a problem waiting to happen. So I don't want to do that. I'm going to allocate every single resource on any computer I put Proxmox on to Proxmox and Proxmox only, because I don't want to have to remember that there's some, shadow LVM on that system unless I'm trying to hide data or something. Yeah. Okay. So, what do we got next? We got max root, defines the maximum size root volume. How do you even set these things? These are not options you can set. I don't remember seeing these as options. Let me read it. A summary of previously selected options. Recheck everything. Previous button. To accept, press install. If the installation failed, check the specific errors on a second TTY. Oh, good old Control F2. Ensure the system's meeting the minimum requirements. If the installation is still not working, look at the How to Get Help chapter. Further configurations of your Proxmox with the web interface. So I think this stuff is all web interface stuff. And I'm going to go look at storage view. So I have a PVE one. I have local PVE one, which is enabled active content, VC dump backup file, ISO image. 3.27 gigabytes of 100 gigabytes used. I feel like I have more space on that drive that's not available. To do ZFS snapshot backup makes more sense than a refresh option. Yeah. Yeah. Backups, PVE1. Okay, I'm learning something here. So in the PVE, there's two volume groups, it looks like. There's storage local. Okay. I'm rereading the docs because I remember it saying something about this. So it creates 2 storage sections on the thing. Okay, so I want to make sure I understand this. This installs 2 partitions. John Carmack, who's that? Complete operating system to Linux, Proxy VE, which installation is 64x with Butterfest. After choosing the correct entry, I really want to understand this. Partitions, if you go to the server view, really? All right, let me go to that. I'm going to go to the server view, and we're going to look at the data center, options, Ceph cluster, node search, storage, directory. What does directory mean? I do remember them saying that they're installing 2 different things. They're installing path. That must just mean it's a directory on the base host Debian system. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And then it has an LVM, a thin LVM disk container image. How much does this have in it? I'll go look at something here. So this has local LVM, VM disks. There's no disks created here at all. That's very interesting. 0 bytes of 367 gigabytes. So I must have a 500 gigabyte hard drive because, yeah, that makes sense. Because this is 100 gigabytes for the base install. It uses LVMs. I don't get to choose that. PV one node. It has 2 storage, 3.7. Okay. Disk usage 3.2%, 0%. So it does make an LVM volume group, and it makes another kind of base thing for its own self. But this is where the VMs go. Okay, so that's good to know. That's good to know. That means there's no storage sharing going on between the host. And I remember reading that. I'm trying to find the words where they said that again. Advanced options. They store different things. The smaller one stores backups, ISO files, etc. The other keeps VM disks and containers storage. Okay. All right. And we got the root password thing. Previous. ZFS performance tips. ZFS works best with a lot of memory. If you intend to use ZFS, make sure you have enough RAM available. A good calculation is 4 gigabytes per 1 gigabyte of RAM. 4 gigabytes plus 1 gigabyte of RAM for each terabyte of raw disk space. ZFS can use a dedicated drive to write cache. I think I'm just using ext4, right, which is a default. LVM and ext4. Install Proxmox VE on Debian. Oh, if you want to install on Debian, let's read about this. Let's read about how to install it on Debian, and then that'll take us into our questions time. We'll have a nice break time before we start for our questions and answer period. Proxmox VE ships as a set of Debian packages and can be installed on top of a standard Debian installation. So you install Debian, and then you do apt-get update, install Proxmox VE. Installing on top of existing Debian installation looks easy, but it presumes that the base system has been installed correctly and that you know how you want to configure and use the local storage. You also need to configure the network manually. In general, if this is not trivial, especially with LVM or ZFS is used, a detailed step-by-step can be found on this wiki. Stage will be available for Q&A? Yeah, for sure. Yep. All right, so we're going to go ahead and end this YouTube reading of chapters 1 and 2 of the Proxmox documentation while we go about our installation. I will be putting all of this reading into a playlist. So stay tuned. We're going to take a break